This is the Big MJ Debate Small Talk, the sub-series that focuses on smaller discussions and individual topics relating to Michael Jackson. We've been wanting to launch this series for quite some time, however the right opportunity has never presented itself, until yesterday, when an article featured in a newspaper so irrelevant, it's given away free on public transport. I am, of course, talking about the Evening Standard. A journalist, we say with inverted commas, decided to write an article for the Evening Standard about, you guessed it, Michael Jackson. At the moment, for those of you that don't live here, we are in the midst of a scandal with a TV personality that spent much time insulting Michael is now at the midst of his own scandal with accusations of bullying, sexual assault, blackmail, harassment. But of course, we're not going to focus on that because, Michael Jackson. So I thought today we should dive into the article and get to the heart of what the journalist is trying to say and failing to say. So let's take a look. The headline reads, "Will London audiences welcome Michael Jackson musical after abuse allegations?" You already know how this is going to go, but let's persist. Subheading, a new show which draws a veil over Jackson's difficult history has just finalised the cast. Well, there's your first mistake, because no, it hasn't. It was announced probably 2 months ago that Miles Frost would be coming to London to star in MJ the Musical. They even did a whole video on it where Miles packed up his suitcase on the stage in Broadway and then set his sights for London. It's been widely known that he's going to be the lead in the show in London. Before he was even announced, it was rumoured that Miles Frost was going to take the London gig. So, no, it hasn't just been announced, my friend. You are once again late. Oh, they've used one of the pictures from Broadway, so they had no problem licensing one of the official pictures. A theatre in Soho is bracing for kickback as it prepares to put on a Michael Jackson show that fails to address his abuse allegations. Right. Where to start? A kickback. So a kickback would suggest that there's been some sort of uproar about this show happening at the Prince Edward Theatre. At the bottom of this article, it clearly states that the theatre had been contacted for comment and nobody had. So where is this apparent kickback coming from? How are they preparing for it? This is the typical overdramatic journalism that's like preparing for a kickback as if everybody's holding a metal shield by the door, scared at what? First and foremost, let's be clear about something. The Prince Edward Theatre has been selected for MJ the Musical. The team behind the theatre will have done something called market research. As a journalist, you might want to learn how to do this yourself. But if you don't know how, let me explain to you how it would have worked in this situation. The Prince Edward Theatre, when approached with the prospect of hosting MJ the Musical, would have looked into it. They would have looked at Michael Jackson, they would have looked at the brand, they would have looked at the ability to sell tickets in London to see if it was viable for them. And clearly, very clearly, they decided it was. The idea that there would be some sort of kickback suggests as if the theatre were being forced to host the musical. Nobody's being forced to hold a musical. They've chosen to host MJ the Musical. They're not worried about it. Why are you? Let's continue. It is the first major Jackson show to hit London since Leaving Neverland, the 2019 documentary. No, not true. Not true again. After Leaving Neverland in 2019, Thriller Live continued to play in London until early 2020 when it closed due to COVID. It was due to end its run anyway, and it closed with COVID and decided not to reopen. There was also recently a show in London, Symphonica, with Peter Andre doing Michael Jackson songs, which was at the Palladium and was a sellout. So no, this isn't the first Michael Jackson show to hit London since the allegations. But again, you would have had to have done a little bit of research for this article to know that. But why research when we can just create a scandal out of nothing? The article goes on. The show, which has been a hit on New York's Broadway, gets around the problem by being set in 1992, the year before the singer was first publicly accused of abuse. It deals with his financial woes, drug use, and trauma from childhood. I mean, as far as a musical goes, this is already some heavy content to include in it. It's quite, it's asking a lot from the audience to sit and watch those things take place and then sort of be upbeat when we drop Billie Jean, or we drop another jovial Michael Jackson song like Can You Feel It? So they're already dealing with some pretty tough topics that took place in Michael's life. But no, you want more. You want more blood. This is why I chose to wear Thriller today, because I thought we're talking about ghoulish zombie behavior. Let's stick a Thriller t-shirt on. On its release, the New York Times said that the looming question was, how would the show grapple with allegations that the pop star molested children? The answer, it doesn't. No shit. And let me tell you why it doesn't. And you should know this, and you do know this. Let's be real, you do know this. But you don't get an article on the Evening Standard if you don't say the opposite. The reason it doesn't deal with those allegations is for many reasons. First and foremost, this is a musical by the Michael Jackson estate. It is an official product of Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's position on these allegations is that he was innocent. His estate's position is that he is innocent. And that is why they are fighting it in a courtroom where it should be discussed. Why would they then put that in their own musical when they have deemed it not to be relevant to Michael Jackson's story? Their position is these false accusations never happened, and so they have no place in Michael Jackson's story. Why would they include them? The second point, he contradicts himself in the second point is he contradicts himself in the paragraph. He says, firstly, the show, which has been a hit in New York's Broadway, gets around the problem by being set in 92, the year before the singer was first publicly accused of abuse. But then later says, but the New York Times ask how they grapple with it. Well, if it was before he was accused, why would they need to grapple with something that apparently hadn't happened yet? I mean, that's just stupid. You can read your own work back, right? You can read what you're asking. And again, if your question is to be why wasn't the accusations in Leaving Neverland included in the musical, because they have no place in Michael Jackson's story, because the official position is that they didn't happen. So they've got no place in the story. But fundamentally, here's where this gets confusing. Why on earth would anybody want to go and see a musical that includes accusations of abuse played out to the soundtrack of somebody's greatest hits? What is wrong with you? What, like, let me understand something. So you want to sit in your velvet chair in the theatre clutching your programme whilst watching allegations of abuse on stage? Why do you want to see that? Why would anybody want to see that? Why would a regular person want to pay upwards of £100 for a night out to spend 2 hours hearing about that? Who's looking for that? Furthermore, why would you think it's a good idea to turn accusations, because that's what they are and that's what they've always been, accusations of abuse, into a stage play? Who sat there and thought, do you know what would make a really good play? The accusations against Michael Jackson. I mean, this is really basic stuff, and it sounds so ridiculous when you say it out loud. And maybe before you'd written this article, if you'd said it out loud, you might realise how stupid you sound. Oh, this bit gets to the heart of it. A theatre insider tells the Londoner that some are surprised it has been seen as appropriate to put on a show, and that producers are making a gamble. British audiences are ready to watch Jackson material again. Right, a theatre insider. I mean, who? Who is said insider? This is where it gets so silly. It's like a source close to the star said. Who? Who is that? A theatre insider could be anyone from that enjoys going to the theatre, to the person that cleans the stalls, to the person that cleans the toilets, to the stage manager, to the director themselves. Who is said theatre insider? And this is a typical tactic that so many journalists use. They think by using a source close or an insider is going to almost give what they're saying some credibility. It doesn't. A theatre insider is irrelevant. Best of luck trying to make that one stick. But the producers are making a gamble as to whether British audiences are ready to watch Jackson material again. Right, again. I mean, I might as well have just stuck the word research above my head. Number ones, and now Michael Jackson Essential, has been in the top 30 in the British album charts for over a decade. Even this week, it's still in the top 20. Michael Jackson, This Is It, is now available on UK Netflix. Evidently, people still watch and listen to Michael Jackson. Just this morning, he was on BBC Radio 2. He came in the top 10 earlier this year for Smooth's Ultimate 500 on the radio. People still like and listen to Michael Jackson. You need to get over it. I know that it doesn't fit your agenda and it doesn't fit your narrative, and you wouldn't have your little blog posted without it. But people still listen to Michael Jackson. And instead of sitting there saying, oh, you know, this one and that one are taking a gamble, why don't you look for yourself? Why don't you ask that question yourself? Why don't you say, let me see if people are still taking a gamble, as you so put it. Furthermore, though, there is no gamble to be had. No one's gambling anything. If I listen to Michael Jackson in my headphones on the way to work, I'm not gambling anything, and I certainly don't need yours or anybody else's approval to do so. An older Jackson musical, Thriller, was on the West End around a decade, but closed at the start of the pandemic. The Prince Edward Theatre is large, with a 1,700 capacity, so it will take some filling. The theatre approached for comment. And that, my friends, is the extent of this article that apparently needed to come out yesterday. It had no relevance of coming out. Oh, wait, but it did. Because every time someone else is in the spotlight, Michael Jackson, every single time. It's so easy to resort to the Michael Jackson accusations to get yourself out of having to do any research about a current accusation. Oh, but could it be because Michael Jackson is dead and therefore he can't defend himself or he can't speak out to these allegations? But the people being accused right now are very much alive. And if you say the wrong thing, they could sue you. So when we write these articles, are we writing from a place of integrity? Or are we writing from a place where Michael Jackson is an easy target? So when MJ the Musical opens in London, obviously the critics are going to be staring at it, looking at it and wondering why it doesn't have abuse allegations centre stage. And we have to ask ourselves, like, what is it you want to see in this musical? The Jackson estate would be damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they'd have included the allegations, you would have said, oh, well, of course the estate are biased. They're not going to cover it truthfully because, you know, they have a brand to protect. And so they don't include the allegations, and you lot are like, why don't they include the allegations? They should be including the allegations. So which is it? Because if they did, they're going to tell it their way, which is that nothing happened. So you're not going to like that. So you're not going to like it if it is included because it's not your way, and you're not going to like it if it isn't included. So they may as well just do their own thing anyway, which is exactly what they have done. But let's explore the allegations and what it is that you would really want on stage. Would you like the moment where Michael Jackson was forced to strip naked and be photographed by law enforcement? Would that give you some sense of glee to see an actor portraying a naked man that suffered from vitiligo standing on the stage being humiliated as he's being photographed, but did it anyway to prove a point that he didn't do anything? He knew that he had to go through that, and it was one of the most traumatic experiences of his life, but he did it anyway. Would you like that on the stage? Would you like the moment where 2 grand juries found that there was not enough evidence to charge Michael with anything? Would that work for you? Would you like to include the point where the train station was built in 1994 and therefore invalidates any claims that anything happened in the train station prior to that? Would you like to include the claims where Michael was performing in Australia, not in America during Thanksgiving, as per your Precious Movies claims? All of these things you could find out if you followed the court case. But you're not interested in that, and you've never been interested in that. And here's the point. These current allegations are 10 years old this year. 10 years they've been going on for. It first started in 2013, and since then we've had MJ1, we've had Escape, we've had Off the Wall re-edition, we've had various other projects released, and not once did you say, well, why aren't they talking about the allegations on these projects? And do you know why you never said that? Because you weren't aware of them and you weren't interested in them. But the minute someone turns it into a movie for you and sticks it on TV, suddenly you're interested. Suddenly you're invested, but not to the point where you're willing to go and investigate and read up and find out what's true and what isn't. You're only invested as far as that movie tells you to be. And you then think that gives you some sort of authority or moral position to talk about Michael Jackson or the projects that come out in his name. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't. It doesn't give you any authority whatsoever. Because in actual fact, you're showing your ass. You really are showing your ass. Because what you're demonstrating is that you don't actually have a clue. You think that what you say is what everybody else thinks, when actually it couldn't be further from the truth. You're asking how audiences are grappling with the prospect of a musical about Michael Jackson coming to London. Meanwhile, audiences have bought their tickets and it's selling out. Just as it's done in Broadway, where it's won 4 Tony Awards and sells out night after night. So when MJ the Musical opens next year in London, I'm sure it'll be a roaring success. However, here's the thing. If it closes, that's fine. Because you know what? Many musicals close pretty early on. Andrew Lloyd Webber, one of the most successful musical writers in the world, had his show close, Bad Cinderella, after less than a year. It actually closed on Broadway in less than 4 months. The Spice Girls musical, the Spice Girls are a British institution whether you love them or hate them. Their musical closed after 7 months. You know why? Because shows come and shows go. And MJ the Musical might come and it might go. And that won't be down to the fact that the abuse allegations weren't included on stage, because guess what? Nobody wants to see that. Nobody is asking to see that except this weird group of journalists that are sort of desperate for it to be on stage. It's really weird that you want that. And actually, I think the bigger point here is that what you're demanding of a stage musical is quite strange. I don't know about you, but if I go to see a musical, it's because I want to feel uplifted. I want to feel empowered. I want to feel great about myself. And I want to walk out of that thinking, do you know what? That was over £100 well spent. I don't want to walk out feeling dark and depressed and getting in my taxi and going home. And here's the thing. The theatre industry has struggled since COVID. It's also struggled to win over new, younger audiences, particularly because of the price point is so extremely high. And what are you and your colleagues doing? You're trying to turn people away from the theatre. So again, you're showing your arse. Because once again, you've decided that it's more important to trash a show before it's even opened than support the theatre. Don't you think the cast of that show deserve to be supported? But you want to damage the industry by trying to frighten people into not going, by trying to put a sour taste on it. And you haven't even seen it. Meanwhile, you continue to go after Michael Jackson, who's been gone for 13 years and whose case has been going on in court for 10 years. But you weren't interested until 2019. My suggestion to you next time, don't hit submit on that article because it was frankly bullshit.